EKURU, jambo. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Vitok. Habari ya siku mingi.
Si mbaya bwana, ulipotea huko onekana, you've not been seen bwana.
Where?
Hata samaki yako boila tukule siku hizi, uliamua kufunga resources.
No, lakini leo tuko na daktari, kana kuna nini?
Kuna mazuri.
Kuna hope.
Na matumaini ya kulamba samaki.
Unaweza kula rech.
How was your week?
My week was fine. Just of course waking up to the news this week of people dying, new wave of COVID-19. Doctors, medical experts are all warning that we should now take this thing very seriously. It's not a joke. And that between March and June, apparently many people seems to have missed this warning from both Lancet and even Cambridge and other medical practitioners. They're actually saying that we should be careful. This is likely to be more serious than the rest. But also, many schools now have confirmed cases of COVID-19. In fact, my own daughter now is doing remote learning at home because their school, all the year 10, year 11, and year 9 has been told to study from home. I think, of course, also I think there is hope that the vaccine is now around. Only that we are not sure how it's being distributed, as we see in other nations. So it's been a very tough week. I mean, we've also read stories about presidents from other countries. People like John Pombe Magufuli is in town because of COVID. Former president of Somalia just died the other day. Many others. And for those, of course, I mean, former Prime Minister Raila Amolo Odinga is hospitalized for COVID. We really want to pray for their quick recovery, so that we can put our heads together on how to save populations. And let me give a special, perhaps maybe a special message to the people of Tanzania. I think it is time they really took this COVID-19 very, very seriously. Surprisingly, if you look at the history of Tanzania in ignoring pandemics, it's not new. When I think was it in the 70s or when the rest of Africa was actually vaccinating for polio, Tanzania ilipuuza.
Wakasema kitu.
And right today, on a balance of, on a probability, you'll find many polio victims in Tanzania compared to the East African countries. So I think even with this COVID-19, I really pray for the quick recovery of Dr. John Pombe Magufuli, the president of Tanzania. And I want him to go back to Tanzania to tell Tanzanians this thing is real. Yeah, it nearly sent me to Baba. Not Baba Hinga.
But they are friends, maybe they met there. So yes. You say Baba.
So it's a coincidence. So I think this week has been full
They say they're childhood friends.
But also it's been a week where I was surprised to hear one minister who I think is so intoxicated with power, this man called Matiang'i, threatening judges, the High Court, and magistrates, even insisting that they must not release people on certain bail terms. I was shocked. As a lawyer, I was completely shocked that this man wants the judiciary not to follow the law and evidence before it or to weigh matters, but wants the judiciary to work on the whims of their political convenience. That, I think, for me, shocked me this week to hear that. But again, should I really be shocked? Maybe not.
You always tell us not to be shocked.
Yes, because...
So I'm surprised you're shocked.
Yes.
You always shock yourself and then...
that I'm shocked.
I'm shocked yourself. Shocked that you are shocked.
This is shocking.
Because actually, I think impunity has become either the first name or the middle name of this administration.
Wow.
And I think it flows from even just the president himself, ignoring the appointment of judges, ignoring court orders. So it doesn't surprise.
It is systemic.
So it should not surprise me that when a minister can wake up, stand there tall and threaten judges and tell them not to release people. Remember, the same Matiang'i, let's be very brutally honest, Bitok. It was Matiang'i who ran to court to prevent his prosecution over the Ruaraka land saga. He went to court and he secured a court order for him not to be prosecuted. Supposing some other minister would have said, no, do not release, do not protect this man. So this convenience really is annoying.
Do not release Matiang'i.
Yeah.
Ojwang, I think you are the most disappeared person, for the lack of better English. You are the one who has longest disappeared for a long time. How have you been?
I've been all right. I've been okay. Yeah.
I can see. You're looking very okay. How was your week?
The week is okay. It's coming to an end. As Dr. Aukot is saying, the scare of second wave.
Third, actually.
It has got to third.
Yeah, because the first one was the last year, and then there was the South African variant and British variant. That was the
right.
Now we are told it's this third one.
Third
which
wave
is more lethal.
Yeah, and usually people who do epidemics, they say people usually die and suffer more in the second, third.
Okay.
Even in history, I've been reading the history of epidemics. And you have seen people who have tried to put even COVID in context, of the swine flu and all it's sad that all the history we are hearing of epidemics is in Europe, as if there has never been an epidemic in Africa. And that's a challenge to those medics who study epidemiology, because I know there is a time, even when I talk to my older people, who are saying there was in the 60s that a disease came that killed people. But when you see in the listing, you only hear Europe. This killed a lot of people in Europe. This killed a lot of people. So the centralization of Europe as the world. Be as it may,
I think they're dying more than the rest of us.
They're dying more than the rest of us. Collectively, we have other things killing us. Here is, if you go to hospital, you'll find things like somebody's there, he has been gorged by a cow. Those are things you won't find in Europe.
Doc, somebody joked,
and I
want to say this on a very light note. When people, again, maybe it's in the context of understanding these epidemics, that coronavirus appears to be targeting Caucasians more than people like us. So somebody was joking and saying, hii corona wachia wazungu, hii ma HIV and AIDS, jina manini, makolera,
dysentery and yellow fever. Malaria. But you see, that was the thinking for a few days, until they realized that the African Americans, who probably share with us the same genetics, are now in the opposite, dying more than the white in the same country. And so then they ruled out the genetics, because you have the same genetics with the African American who are actually dying more in America or in Europe than the rest of the population. And there is some research in India that is coming to try explain this in terms of the germ theory. The germ theory is that if you live in a very clean environment, you have lived with those people who everything is sanitized and whatever, your body picks less viruses and your body develops less immunity. That is logical, isn't it?
Yes, right.
So they are saying what kills most people in this COVID is the reaction. The mucus is the body fighting, and the body is attacking itself. So if your body is too clean, if you have less virus, remember that at the beginning they thought they will be picking bodies in Kibera, but that has never happened yet. Because if your body is very clean, when your body gets something foreign, it overreacts. Fever, mucus, all those are body fighting. And so the European's body, or not so much European, but people coming from cleaner places, the body, when they get this foreign virus, overreact, and that is what is killing them. Now it gets to an African body, and it follows the line after TB, HIV,
the guy has seen a lot of problems
and then whatever. The body don't overreact. He just say, "Where
Doc, I don't know about you and Bitok, but me, I grew up playing in the mud, drinking water from the dam, or water from downstream when somebody is bathing upstream.
There is always somebody upstream.
Doing all manner of things. So for some reason, we are still here. So maybe over time we build hard immunity.
Resilience. Yeah, so even if your body don't recognize the virus, but the body have lowered its expectation. So if it gets an infection, it does not overreact. Because it's the overreaction. If you look at what is killing people, it is the body fighting. And so if your body can relax, take a chill pill and say, well, that's one of those. And that has made a difference. And this is, so there's senior scientists in peer-reviewed journals that have written this in India to explain. And so, because it's not genetics, but then it is the socialization, it is the tough childhood. If you went to Nyamachoma joint with a white person, do you know they might pick 20 bacteria in that Nyamachoma, which your body will not, even this thing of food poisoning. You know, it's a class thing. you sit with somebody and the one has food poisoning, another one is wondering from where we ate the same food.
And many times you pick it in some fine dining area. Because maybe you ate fish that was not properly
right.
And you know the food of the poor is always fresh, because they don't bakishange, they eat to finish. Nakula kumaliza si kushiba.
First of all, ni ngumu kupata hiyo chakula.
And it is from fork to mouth.
Right. So pole sana kwa baba Raila Odinga kwanza. We wish you a very quick recovery. Pole sana baba.
He better recover.
Yes. And he better recover.
Or it will be bad, man. It's not looking good.
But I think when Baba recovers, and I pray that he recovers quickly, I think Baba should consider retiring from politics. Because, you know, some of his party members are saying this recent attack on him is because he overworked his body in his visit to the coast.
To the coast.
I saw Kingi, and I think Amazon Kingi and are being blamed for stressing Baba.
You were walking Baba. Stress Baba.
For stressing Baba, because they brought this issue of a new political party for the coastal region. So I think it shook Baba. It's like the theory of the jam.
It shook the immunity.
Like the history of the jam, as Doc has explained. So Baba is not used for people within his party thinking of forming another political party.
They can move on. So like your child telling you don't
so
move
this
on.
was like a jam attacking a very clean
man.
But for them rebelling, Baba would not have been caused. Therefore, Baba would not have worked himself. I see the connection. It's very clear.
But on a very serious note, we really pray that not just for Baba, but for many other Kenyans, because many other Kenyans have also died. You know, and maybe actually let me take this chance. You know, as Doc has just informed me, to send my condolences to the family of my former vice chairperson at IBC selection panel, Professor Marion Mutubu, whose husband is being buried today. After, you know, after his demise. So, and there are many Kenyans. So we actually pray for Kenyans. And I think one of the things that I'm really hoping that our government could do with speed is just roll out this vaccination, especially to certain ages. As you can see, senior citizens are more under
attack,
at more risk than they are more at risk than the rest of us. So maybe really let's have a clear plan, strategy from government on on vaccination and how we can save this population. But more importantly, like I've said before, let's also talk about measures that can actually help Kenyans come out of this pandemic economically, health-wise, socially. Because this thing,
it's real. Imetupanga.
I don't see the point of an office.
So it has actually contributed in revolutionizing how we do things.
Exactly. I mean, now we
zero costs,
the new norms.
Pressure. But you know, look at the paradox again in Tanzania. Even as you talk about COVID-19, look at the paradox in Tanzania. The guy who has been telling these guys this thing is not there, and you guys continue with your business of the day, he's sick.
He's fighting for his life.
You know, but again, he has the ability to fly out and seek medical care.
Exactly.
The wananchi are still stuck there. You don't know how many are sick. The paradox
that's a very important
leadership.
point you raise, not just in the context of Tanzania. Now, doctors, medical experts warned, even in our own context as Kenyans, the gatherings that we are beginning to see because of the craze around 2022, succession politics, is the number one enabler of the spread of this pandemic, of this disease. So, it's not just about Tanzania, but even Kenyans must now wake up and really pinch themselves. You can go to these political rallies and hear all the political nonsense being told to you, no communication, no nothing. But when those people who have caused you to gather in large numbers catch this COVID, yeah, if they decide to stay in the country, on a balance, majority of them have got a 10 million inpatient cover, or at the very least, if it comes, if it becomes worse, they can fly out of the country. Like we see, the president of Tanzania is flown into Kenya. There's already talk that he might be flown to India. But what about you? The majority of people are being told, don't wear masks, don't sanitize, because this thing is not real. Even if we get a vaccine, like Magufuli, I think, told his countrymen that it has to be our local vaccine. That this other vaccine might be used to kill us, to finish us. I mean, science is real. Science is real.
So the countrymen are busy sniffing eucalyptus and
science,
these guys.
Science is regulated by law. So I think it's very irresponsible of any political leadership or leadership anywhere in the world, and not just Tanzania, and even Kenya, to tell people to ignore science.
I think, COVID is real. Yeah. It might not be a matter of flying out. We have always associated flying out with the class. If you go to Nairobi Hospital, even if you're in Kenya, you might not need a visa to come to Nairobi Hospital, but you might not afford it. So the issue of affordability and the disparity, we might construct it beyond just, so and so has flied out. Because how many Kenyans can access Nairobi Hospital? It is still so it is still the same thinking, even if you fly or you don't fly, but there is disparity. But again, the insurance, which is a legal issue, do not cover COVID treatment. Because I know of some family even that now had a huge medical bill, that COVID treatment is not covered by insurance. You see Kagwe with these numbers, and the government have not even tried to negotiate with our insurance seriously in terms of getting us that coverage. So that disparity is there. You have an insurance, but when you have COVID, you have to go back to your coffers if you do, or you perish. And so it is interesting that within all those committee and task force on COVID, nobody have reviewed the fairness of the insurance company saying COVID is out of their cover. Finally, let us cut Magufuli some slack, because there is a lot of blame on either side. Magufuli refused to KEMSA his country. That is a decent thing to do. Magufuli did not deny that there is no COVID. That is the spin of Kenya media. Magufuli was the first person to be tested. Magufuli admitted his son had COVID. Magufuli just said the hyper. And so there are science options or different views on what measures and countermeasures. For example, Magufuli refused to lock down the country at a time that others lock down the country. Those who lock down the country have opened the country at a time that the virus have increased. We are the people working, pushing, eating BBI. Magufuli is not amending the constitution during COVID. So it is almost the proverbial Bible that you see a log. You see a speck in somebody's eye, but you miss the log in your eye. Here is where the donations have been sold to Tanzania. This is where the blood nini have been dried. It's in Somalia. It's been sold in Somalia. And the very donors cannot find their blood. Now you have had the parliamentary hearing. Can you tell us the members of your company? No, I will not. I've forgotten. No, I've forgotten. Can you come to us next week? No, I'd actually plan to do something next week. How did you get this tender? Well, I was walking around and I found a 300 million tender. I mean, so I don't know whether it's a way that Kenyans inoculate themselves, that they sit in a rotten. If there is a degree of being spoiled, Tanzania is spoiled, but Kenya is rotten. Here is somebody where your parliament cannot even get, she was being asked, how come you don't have a letterhead that the printer was down? This is now parliament doing its oversight role. These are the games we're seeing in Kenya.
And one thing that shocked me about that is that actually one of the MPs was telling her, it's okay, we can give you up to next Friday. And I think, like EKURU usually says, is that Kenyans deserve what we go through. I mean, because we have accepted to be treated, we are treated. The MPs and even these thieves, they know very well that we love entertainment. So they script a narrative. Suddenly, we are focusing more on the drama that was in the Senate and not the money that was lost. You're talking about someone who said they don't remember the regulatories. You're talking about someone who was just passing by and they're called into a tender. So I think they have known that Kenyans, we can live with any shit.
So to put it in the context of our theme for Friday, which is Sheria WIKI.
Yes.
Now, what Doc has explained is a degree of negligence known to law. That people, because of their actions, have been negligent, and out of that negligence, they have caused the suffering of the majority, and there has to be consequences in law. Now, yes, Doc has cut some slack for Magufuli, but I also think that it is completely irresponsible of Magufuli to have said, let's turn to prayer, and that this thing will go away. But anyway, let's not belabor that. I think Doc has brought us back to the reality we call Kenya. Our own country, Kenya, today, we are witnessing a lot of many illegalities being committed in the context of this COVID-19. Let's go back to the highest law in the land, the Constitution. What does the Constitution say about treatment of a sick person in the time of an emergency? It does not matter.
Right to health.
Yes, the right to health. It does not matter whether you are you go to Nairobi Hospital, a private hospital, or Aga Khan, or wherever, or Kenyatta Hospital. If it's an emergency, the treatment should be free, because the right to health is a human right. Nobody should monetize or commercialize, especially during this, because we've seen COVID-19 actually kills. So it's a pandemic. It's an emergency. Our own law actually allows for that. You just need to read chapter 4, the Bill of Rights and the right to health. Nobody should be turned away because this argument of insurance companies and all these people are complicit, and they're actually committing atrocities. They are committing offenses known to law. So in fact, I wish if DPP was creative enough in this country, he could actually bring one charge of conspiracy to commit murders or manslaughter when insurance companies refuse
to serve
to pay
for patients.
To pay for this. But secondly or thirdly, I also blame our government and the political leadership in this country. They should be able to tell these insurance companies, no, this is a pandemic, this is a natural disaster. Nobody planned for it. It's not like it's an unseen enemy, So in that context, we need to see leadership from government, from the executive, telling insurance companies that is nonsense. But you see, insurance companies are behaving like that because we have got a feckless and lackluster leadership in this country. Why? Because even National Health Insurance Fund, which is a government parastatal itself, has said to Kenyans, no, we don't recognize, COVID-19 as a disease that can be subjected to the cover. So really, what we are saying, in contextualize this now in our theme, we are actually, leadership in this country, insurance companies are actually seeing people die and doing nothing about it.
And can we actually sue them? Can a citizen sue them?
We can bring a class action. Can bring a class action against.
Because even if you look at remember that contractor in Britain who was sued for killing Iraqis, he had come with measures and tests for bomb that were fake. So if you look, as Doc is saying, if you look at the constitutionalism and you look at the rule of law, there is none in Kenya on this issue. Yeah. Remember when it started, it was about clobbering people, finding them and rounding them and putting them somewhere in Bagadi at their expense. That went on and on. It has been a time of impunity, and everybody realized that that was not preventing COVID. So we have also have a huge share of our mistakes. How many times have the president promised that the report will come and no stone will remain untouched? The Kenyan favorite. Obviously, Kenya live in a rocky place, so every stone will be. There will be no stone left unturned. Have you seen that report? You have seen the parliamentary. It is painful to watch, isn't it? It's like an accident scene. Something tells you look away, but you're saying, let me look, stare one more time.
And can you imagine, Doc, while you are at it, these are legislators, these are people who make laws, who are supposed to enact laws so that society can behave itself in a certain way. But look at how they are holding this briefing. You know, it sickens me. Sorry to continue.
Yeah. So I think that we are on our own. The Kagwe numbers, you know, our constitution envisioned accountability. Remember, they were very big on bloggers, calling every other dissent conspiracy theory. We have suffered, but nobody is questioning. Now, if you ask the Kenya government, even KEMRI, that is a research center, apart from giving mask and testing, how far have they progressed even in trying to also experiment to find a vaccine? I doubt it. Now, do we have register in Kenya where if we have any adverse reaction to the vaccine, we can know? Nothing. It is we are a country where open your mouth, I put the vaccine, and a serious country,
because there are already cases of people reacting to some of these vaccines.
There should be a follow-up. That is nothing in Kenya.
And even as we roll up that conversation on COVID and everything around it, so that we can move to Sharia. The question is, there's something that came up yesterday. The vaccines that we've imported, we had a second batch yesterday, and the vaccine that we imported is actually it's called AstraZeneca
from Oxford.
And Denmark has suspended the use of it yesterday because of clot fears, blood clot fears in the body, and thrombosis. Is thrombosis or thrombosis issues that have affected the citizenry. And the question is, who, you know, from a legal point of view, who protects wananchi from its own government? Because it looks like we have a government that is cannibal. You know,
see, and I think for me that's a very important point you raise, and which Doc has also hinted at. So if you look at the conspiracy, I choose to look at this from a legal and a criminal point of view. I see conspiracies being committed by as many in many fora in this country as possible. The political class is committing a conspiracy to either kill Kenya or to drive them into death when they assemble them. Of course, Kenyans are also willing slaves, like Dr. Ojwang will always explain, you know, that this man comes and tells you, I'm here, and then you come in thrones.
Say, please enslave us.
Yeah, please enslave us. We are gathering, we are not wearing masks. So yes, there's a conspiracy from the political class when they negligently proceed to all these big rallies and meetings and gatherings in funerals or whatever the case may be. Then, of course, there's conspiracy from government itself, that it is not putting certain policies, certain administrative issues, for example, to save lives. Yes, they are saying there's a curfew. Fine, that's an administrative policy issue. But I wish they could go beyond, for example, now say, how then do you allow these insurance companies to say, I mean, nobody likes going to hospitals. If I paid you a premium of, say, about 3 million, I mean, 300,000, 200,000, take a cover of about 10 million, 5 million inpatient. In a pandemic, why are you denying me treatment? Yet that is medical cover, medical insurance cover, as it is. Now, we have a government itself that is not actually protecting people. Then you have got these other conspirators now, the insurance companies, that are already borrowing cue from the political class, from the executive. Now the insurance companies are also joining in, and of course they are now cartels. Those who are now benefiting from these, from these drugs. Like by now, and I think I was watching CNN, they are now saying whatever vaccine comes your way, whether it is the Sputnik, whether the AstraZeneca, whether it's the Johnson & Johnson, take it. But you watch what's happening in Kenya. We are restricting it to just AstraZeneca because somebody somewhere, because of a deal, somebody has secured a contract, a supply somewhere, and therefore locking all others. You know, I can tell you today, I have a client who can actually access the Sputnik vaccine, for example. But you try to reach out to the people in the ministry and tell them, listen, there's somebody who is willing to actually bring the Sputnik vaccine in the country, even the Johnson & Johnson. But they won't. They won't let you because they control this. So you can see conspiracies across the board. So the question is, although I know Kenyans, we are also willing slaves, and we actually drive ourselves to this guillotine. Sometimes even tell the political class, actually tighten the noose so that I die quicker. Because you know when you go your canvas, you're tight enough.
Are you sure you know how to hang people?
Yes.
You know.
So you even ask the question. No, is that rope strong enough?
you know me. I might break it. You know somebody.
That's what in law we say. Sorry. So that's what in law we call contributory negligence. Yeah. So even as wananchi, we are contributing to this negligence. So while we can blame the political class, we are also to blame.
We are part of the mess.
We are part of the mess.
Yeah, contributory negligence or consent. With a consent.
Yes.
You know, somebody described us as somebody who has found themselves on the back of a crocodile, and rather than thinking of I should jump because whichever way the crocodile is going to hit me, they just sit there. You know, you might not know how to swim, but you might as well take your chances in jumping off the back of the crocodile than comfortably sitting at the back of the crocodile because you know the end of this game. So that is Kenya. There is commodification of the life. There is negligence that probably invoke recepta loquita only if this thing is happening. Somebody has messed somewhere. The right to health and the right to life has not been. Most of the staff are PR. Most of the staff are PR, and we have our leaders who, because I also want the president to cut me a slack somewhere, whether with KRA or whatever, I'm not going to criticize. That this is the time for leaders to come together. The issue is not coming together. Coming together to do what? You know, you saw when the president called the meeting where they were criticizing that the deputy president was no call. Nobody mentioned KEMSA. It was sanitized. It was this is a time to come together to do what? What is you are coming together? I think the coming together is in giving advice, is in talking of all the blind spots so that people can be protected. But if a country like ours, I remember there's a time that, was it Malaysia? The European Union refused to admit them to European Union. They say you're not a country. You don't have a system of protecting your orphans. You use international adoption as a way of parenting them. You don't create anything. You know, like in Kenya, all we do is open our mouth and take the vaccines. For now, I think it is the best thing to take any vaccine that is available. Prepare your meaty part for that shot, because that's all our contribution is. You didn't make it. Our Camry didn't do anything. The test kit are coming from South Africa. So what even do you want about second or third wave? You are not in experiment saying now this has mutated, has knocked off my experiment. 0 plus 0 is still 0. But at the end of the day, I'm worried that there is not even a register of saying, how do we track adverse reactions? How do we get to know how many people have died because of a bad immunization? Of course, that is still a small percentage, but it is important to track it for improvement. We know of even children who have been paralyzed from this immunization. When you ask the government for any record, there is none. They are treated at their expense. They suffer there. So there is upuzilization of this government. That
we should vote to add that word to the dictionary. Upuzilization.
I hope you'll remember to use that.
But see, Doc,
Doc,
you know the quickest way, for example, if I was in charge of this country, the quickest way even to map out the possible spread of this COVID. We have 47 counties, for heaven's sake. All those 47 counties, there are CEOs in those counties. There are health departments in those counties. Why not even say, in each of the 47 county headquarters, we do mass testing, like the way other countries are doing. Other countries are going to the supermarkets, to the malls. You know, they even stop you by the highway and swab. That is the only way they can now.
That's how you do any test.
Exactly. You map
Scientific,
out the spread,
right?
Then you allocate resources to it. You see, then you can plan with it. So here, you know, there's somebody from your show here called Frank John Senior. He has actually summarized. He has actually summarized the situation in Kenya. This is what he says, and I think let me read it for this. In Kenya, one person owns an insurance company, a hospital, a morgue, as a coffin making shop, a cemetery. So what will be the interest of that person?
It's a trade, it's business.
Yeah. So it's a business. So that is exactly the kind of political lacuna arena we are in. Because we are not even using our own administrative structures or governance units to try and map this. What is wrong with telling every county governor today? Right. Yeah? We want you to give us statistics. Even just use your most concentrated area, which is, say, the county headquarters. You know? In all the 47 counties, we're actually able to say, okay, this is the possible spread. These are people who are asymptomatic. These are people who are symptomatic. Then you can now begin to say, how many, for example, ICU beds do we need? How many vaccines do we need? Right. How many test kits do we need? Or just go to schools. Okay, medics now are saying that no child has actually died of COVID-19. I don't know how true it is. I mean, the children are much safer than populations beyond a certain age. But there are many places you can actually use to begin to measure. But the reason we are not doing this is because Kenya is a marketplace controlled by few. We're even pretending that we are a free market economy.
And we are not.
We are not.
We are slaves.
Yeah, we are not. Slaves. Because even now for something like this, a pandemic which is supposed to save lives. Yeah, and most of these political, actually all of them, lifted the Bible and the Constitution and swore to protect, uphold, and respect the Constitution, meaning they swore to protect lives of Kenyans. Now, why are you restricting access to Kenya to only one vaccine called AstraZeneca, which now we even hear in some European countries, ikona shida. Open the market. Let Johnson & Johnson come here. Let the Sputniks come here.
And interestingly, you've actually seeing some demonstrations of government officials. Unaona mtu anadungwa hewa ama wanaingiza shilingi na kutoa alafu wanatoa sema ni madungwa. So that kind of PR and the kind of insensitivity and lack of conscience that runs in this country, I mean, in Africa, is quite contested.
If all you wait for is to launch, because that's our disease, cutting ribbons and launching. So we have launched the vaccine, we have whatever, and it's not about meeting people. So we are operating under anarchy, really. There's no constitutionalism. And it affects every corner of our lives. And that health aspect is very clear of what can happen when there's no rule of law, when there's anarchy, and when there is commodification of a country, so that if you are my friend, there is personalization of power, of even presidents. It's not an institution. If you are my friend, I give you, you get tenders. If you are my friend, you can do ABCD. If you are proximate to me, you can take a little liberty in whatever you say. But if you are far, then I will come after you. And that has been what the 2010 Constitution said. No, we don't want personalization of power. We want institutions. But you know very well, even with the talk of a handshake, with the talk of whatever, how many times have we been reminded that there's only one leader and loyalty matters? And you see when when an organization is so much about loyalty and hierarchy, then there is no ideas that is coming from bottom up. We know that health is devolved, but we know that the national government have insisted that they still want to be the one buying the equipment, spending the big bulk of that money on behalf of the counties. And we know that they have also demuscled the Council of Governors. It does not exist anymore. Not as a voice that can tell government, you know, according to our constitution, we have 48 governments.
Yes.
1 national and 47 in the county. But we have gone back to one government, and everything is done in Nairobi, and then it is brought to you. You don't know how, what are the means. So accountability is missing. And we are dying because of personalization of power.
All right.
And I think maybe to that point, we need to go back to the provisions of this constitution and where actually power and sovereign authority derives from. It derives from the people of Kenya. So I think if there are enablers of this impunity, it is the people of Kenya themselves. Because like we have said, even in many instances, that why is it that we are allowing, we are cheering what individuals who have personalized the country, the constitution, want us to do? It is madness that in the midst of a pandemic like this, where we are now scared, we have lost jobs, we don't know where the next meal is going to come from, people are cheering a process to amend the constitution, to personalize the constitution. It is us wananchi who are actually feeding this impunity.
And we are being part of
at
it.
At this time of our history, should we really even be talking about a constitutional amendment that is only aimed at one thing, by the way? To expand the executive to accommodate certain individuals who believe they actually come from the most populous tribe, or they are important in this country, and that without them, this country cannot move on. Or should we be asking ourselves as Kenyans, I don't need to be entertained into these kind of constitutional legal changes, spending 14 billion for a referendum that has already divided Kenyans, instead of saying, how do we secure vaccines or even masks? Because now the biggest warning right now, the biggest warning right now in this so-called new wave, is that do not relent on wearing your mask, sanitizing, washing hands. Those I would assume are very basics for any country to provide its citizen. At least even as you walk somewhere, let's even have a dispenser of masks on the streets or wherever. At least give Kenyans that basic. But you see, it's the same Kenyans who are being exposed to danger and risk of this pandemic and dying, who are cheering a few individuals who are lying to them about constitutional change now in the midst of a danger like COVID-19. That they are entertaining things like, we will get 35% to the counties. The current constitution, the language in the current constitution is that at least 15% must be devoted to the county. That's the minimum. So even administratively, or policy-wise, or even legislatively, nothing has stopped the presidency
from doing that.
After all, did we have to amend the constitution of Kenya 2010 in 2017 to appoint the chief administrative secretaries?
How we did?
No.
And that expanded the executive through presidential fiat, I would say, through presidential decree. So I think kama kuna watu wajinga hapa ni sisi tu wa Kenya. Tukubali tu tuko na ujinga fulani na tukae nayo na tuseme tu hawa watu wanatucheza.
Tukubali kunyongo, tumesema tunyongo.
Unajua hawa wanachezana.
Alafu sisi tunaingiza kwa
game. You heard that Oburu Odinga said that, by the way, they see nothing wrong with Raila Odinga working with Ruto in 2022. Yet we've been treated to this melodrama and theater that these guys are sworn enemies. At the end of the day, I'm telling you, sisi tutabaki tuna pandemic.
I was asking one of my